Record on screen. Awesome. So, hey guys, welcome back to the next video of our series. And this series is pretty much looking at different not-for-profits as well as organizations who are doing their best to try and help the vulnerable, even in the midst of a global pandemic. So we're really lucky today to have Fiona with us, who comes from OzHarvest as our guest. And for those who don't know what OzHarvest does, they pretty much collect food excess from restaurants, hotels, and so on, with the intention to deliver this food to organizations and charities that need it most. So thanks again, Fiona, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
For those who may not know about OzHarvest, what problem or gap did the organisation identify when starting out, and how has...
So OzHarvest started 16 years ago by a wonderful lady called Ronnie Khan, and Ronnie was working in the events business. She had her own events business, so she was actually part of the food waste problem, creating beautiful events with lots and lots of food, and there was always food left over. And she started off really not starting off to start a charity, but to fix her own problem. So she started by taking the leftover food from her own events, just the charities in Sydney, in her own van. And from there she thought, well, if this is a problem for me, it's probably a problem for other people. And at that stage, she always says that she had no idea that food waste was actually a global problem. So from there, she just started doing it herself, and she had a sort of aha moment where she was looking to find her purpose and thought, right, this is it, food rescue. So she got some funding, she gave up her events business and started doing OzHarvest full time, and that was 16 years ago. And we've now delivered 150 million meals in that time.
Wow, that's amazing. And what impact have you seen as a result of the work that you've been doing?
Oh, the impact is incredible and so varied, really, because so there's sort of a few different elements to the business, but the core of our business is food rescue. So that's our little yellow vans. You've probably seen them out in the communities every day. So they're out rescuing surplus food, and that's food that just can't be sold at the supermarket. It's still perfectly edible, but it just might be nearing its expiry, or if restaurants have got things that they haven't used, and hotels and things like that. It's all perfectly edible food that's safe to eat. So we collect that and take that directly to charities who need it most. So we're working with 3,500 food donors, and we're taking that food, which is about 250 tons of food a week, which, if you can imagine, that's like the size of more than two blue whales every week. So that amount of food is going to feed people in need through 1,300 charities across the country. So just that impact alone, is pretty staggering. Also, every time you save food from going to waste, you're saving valuable CO2 emissions from being released into the atmosphere. So I think 150 million meals is about 50,000 tons of food. That's how much we've rescued since we started, which equates to about 100,000 tons of CO2 being saved from the environment. So the impact is twofold. We're obviously stopping food going to waste, which is in turn stopping CO2 being released into the atmosphere, and also feeding people in need. And that's really sort of through our food rescue. And then we've added education programs and things like that, which also is about teaching vulnerable people about nutrition education and how to live a sustainable life and how to cook healthy meals on a budget. So there's that impact there. We've got an education program for primary school kids called Feast. So that's obviously teaching kids about food waste, and again about how to not waste food and make it into delicious recipes instead. So, there's impact at many different levels.
Yeah, so that sounds like you guys are doing a lot. So educating as well as dealing with food waste, and the impact you guys are having is quite phenomenal. So our next question, I guess, is, a lot of people know that restaurants and hotels all had to be shut down during the lockdown and during this pandemic. So obviously a lot of businesses were affected. How did this affect you guys and the work that you guys have been doing?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. At the beginning of back in March when you know, COVID-19 sort of really hit home, the first thing that happened was we had to cancel our big fundraising event, which was due at the end of March, which is, we have a huge event every year with about 2,000 people called CEO Cook-Off, and that raises $3 million. So that we had to cancel literally overnight. We also lost our revenue stream of Cooking for a Cause, where corporates come in and cook at OzHarvest, which is a team building activity. So not only does it produce beautiful cooked meals, but it also gives us revenue. So that was gone overnight. So probably in the space of about 2 weeks, we were down about $4 to $5 million. So the first thing we had to do was lobby the government for urgent funding, because at the same time as losing the funding, the need started increasing. And that was through a number of the charities we delivered to, around 20% of them closed, because either due to confirmed COVID cases or loss of volunteers or funding. And then the ones that were still open were reporting that they could take double or triple the amount of food. We also then, there was the panic buying in the supermarkets. So that meant the vans were coming back with less food from the supermarkets, but that was closely followed by the hospitality industry shutting down. So then we had a surge in food rescue, in the volumes of food that we were collecting. And in fact, April was our biggest month of food rescue in terms of the volume. You know, the airlines as well, that were all, as soon as the planes were grounded, they were getting rid of a lot of the food from their business lounges and that they had in stock. So we benefited at the beginning. And then we've just really had to be responsive every day and every week to the changes in the community and in the environment, knowing that, you know, our usual sources of food aren't always there, but the demand is always there and getting bigger every day.
Yeah, so it's like a weird sort of situation where you've benefited a lot at the start with the hotels and the airlines, but also there's been an increased need, as you said, with the charities. But have you guys started any initiatives to actually directly tackle this increased need during this pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. And really, we were lucky. We were one of the lucky charities that to receive government funding back in April, which has allowed us to start a number of new services, specifically to plug this new demand. So we've introduced pop-up hamper hubs in various communities, two in particular that are catering just for international students and temporary visa holders. And since March, I think we've given away 50,000 hampers across the country for various different groups. We've also introduced two mobile markets, which is a big truck basically that's full of food that goes out to regional communities and bushfire affected communities, and actually takes fresh produce as well as pantry staples to them. We've been we lost our Cooking for a Cause program where we cooked meals in-house. But what happened then is our chefs went straight into the kitchen and started producing on a mass scale cooked meals, which could then go to supplement rescue food, and particularly to, we worked with Family and Community Services to get that into crisis hotel accommodation, where they were putting up homeless people that went out to elderly people who weren't able to get out and shop. So all really nutritious food, individually portioned and frozen, so it would save people going shopping. And you know, so there's a whole new range of services that we've introduced to address this increased need. We've always had our supermarket in Kensington, which is open to anyone based on a take what you need, give if you can basis. And we've opened a second one in Waterloo, in another area of need that was identified with the City of Sydney.
That's great. So for those listening and who are keen to get involved, what can we do?
Yeah, so we always say, well, first of all, you know, OzHarvest is, people are always contacting us to say, what can we do to help? And we usually say it's there's 3 ways to help us. Firstly, you can give us your time, and that is through volunteering. Through COVID, we had to stop taking on new volunteers because we couldn't run the usual training and induction sessions, which would normally be face-to-face. So we have actually started doing some of those online now. So always, if you've got time to volunteer, then there's a section on our website where you can register to be a volunteer. If anybody, it's unlikely with your audience, but you never know, if they have a food business or anywhere that's a registered business with surplus food, absolutely you need to be donating any surplus food to us, or you can run food drives. Certainly it's very useful to get food that's the non-perishable items that we wouldn't normally rescue because they have a longer shelf life. So, rice and pasta and olive oil and tinned foods. Food drives are great. And then really money, that's what keeps our wheels turning. So we say for every $1 donated, we can deliver 2 meals. So, and you can go to our website, OzHarvest.org, just donate $1. If all your listeners donated $1, then, that would be immensely helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear how we can help out. And I'm sure there'll be lots of people in the community who would love to help you guys out, especially during this time. Just our final question for you. As you know, we're the Random Acts of Kindness Society, and so we're very focused on kindness. And we're wondering if there were any short stories of kindness that you've had during this experience of the past few months.
Yeah, well, I'll tell, it's not my story, it's Ronnie's story, but it sort of sums up, really the silver linings, I guess, of the pandemic. And she was, as you know, she runs OzHarvest. She's a busy woman, but she was at home and she realised that she didn't have any books. She needed some groceries, so she went out and she had a hectic day at work, so she'd been working all day. It was quite late at night. I think she popped to her local supermarket, and it was probably about 9 o'clock. She filled up her basket with what she needed. She'd got to the counter and got it all packed in the bag, and then realized that she didn't have her wallet, and she was distressed and tired and emotional and hungry. And then she just got a tap on the shoulder from the guy standing behind her, who said, "Don't worry, I've got this." And he paid for her shopping, and she was like, "Oh, give me your details. I can transfer the money as soon as I get home." And he was like, "No, it's absolutely fine. I got this." And for her, she just felt that was really sort of summed up sort of the kindness that people can show each other, even in really difficult times. And there are so many acts of kindness, I think, that we see throughout our organization, and just the people that help us every day is a beautiful act of kindness. And we got 2,500 volunteers across the country who all give up their time to help us. So let's hope people continue being kind to each other.
That's such a lovely story. Thank you so much for having us, Fiona. And to those listeners who would like to find out more, we've linked their website in the description. Thank you so much for checking us out, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.